Welcome back to the Coming Out Happy podcast. We are your hosts, Danny and Keely, and we are so glad that you're here. Welcome back to the show. Coming Out Happy podcast is all about being LGBTQ+, dating struggles, and so much more.
If you like what you hear, make sure you leave us a 5-star review and rating. We can't wait to hear from you. And as always, welcome back to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Coming Out Happy podcast. It's Keely here with Danny. And we just wanted to, before we get into today's topic, there's a lot going on in this world. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Danny and I record our podcasts like almost the day before they're released because we like to stay really relevant and current with what's going on. And sometimes if you plan that far ahead, we can't stay current. So I know that with everything with the news this week and the Capitol being stormed, there's a lot of heavy hearts, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and it's frustrating to see. You know, Danny and I had a conversation about it last night, and we're upset. We're frustrated. We can't believe that there's such a double standard in America. And if you're listening elsewhere in the world, maybe you've seen on the news that there's a lot of craziness going on. These are times that have never, ever even been seen before. And we're living through them. So I know that it's hard. I know that it's heavy and a lot. But we hope that through this podcast, we can shed a little bit of light, make you laugh and smile, and just enjoy our time together. So let's dive into today's topic. We love you guys. We want you to know that we're here for you always. All right, Danny, let's dive into today's topic. Why don't you tell everyone what we're going to be talking about today?
We're talking about Keely, the questioning phase of being LGBTQ+. Now, I just want to say before we kind of dive into this that this whole journey of being LGBTQ+ is or can be confusing. It can be never ending. You're always figuring out who you are. And the questioning phase is not something to be disappointed in, because I feel like when we're at a place of not being sure of who we are, we feel like we need to be rushed. We need to know exactly who we are and how we label ourselves. And I just want to point it out that we're always trying to figure out who we are. There is no right and wrong along this journey. And questioning who you are is just a part of the process. And it's 100% okay if you are in this spot. I just want to make that very, very clear.
Yeah.
But I love this topic.
I do too. And I completely agree. I've seen so many people commenting on our TikToks actually that they feel that they're not, caught up to where everyone else is. And it's making them feel really bad about themselves. And if that's you and you're listening right now and you're like, oh my gosh, she just nailed it on the head, I want you to know that there is no timeline at all. It's okay to be in the questioning phase and just figuring it out and trying to understand yourself. It takes time. We're complicated human beings, and so it's important that we do take time to really understand what we like, who we don't, what we want, and what we need. That's super important. So, yeah, let's talk about our stories a little bit. Maybe people can see themselves in our stories. And we'd love to hear. If you have more feedback, definitely message us on Instagram after listening to this at Coming Out Happy.
And we would also love to hear about where you're currently at in your journey, because really I think labels change over time. Labels don't have to be used at all. I think it's all a beautiful process. And the best part is that we can just be ourselves without having to fit into a box or a label. So that's very cool. But anyway, let's dive into your story.
Mine first?
Sure.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go first. So for me, I knew at a very, very young age, I felt different with girls. I always felt that way, and it felt very, very special to me that I had, my soccer coach was a girl, and I wasn't obviously attracted to her because she was much older than me, but I felt a special connection, that I wanted to be around her, that I loved being around my camp counselors when I went to camp, or just different things like that. And I also felt that my friends that were girls, I always wanted to take care of them. I felt like I was the caretaker friend. I was the one that was always looking out for everyone, and I just cared about them a lot. Not that I liked them. But then when I was in, I would say middle school, I started seeing that being gay was an option. I saw it for the first time, and that's so crazy to think about that I never knew about it before. But I saw it for the first time that there was this girl that was dating another girl, and I was so intrigued by that. I couldn't believe that there was a girl that was dating another girl because I'd never seen that. I'd never heard about it. I grew up in religion, if you listen to some of the podcasts that we've done earlier, and it just wasn't a thing in my mind. And so when I started seeing that, I started liking the girls that were at my school. I started feeling that, and I actually ended up getting with a girl and talking to her about how I felt, and it was really, really special. I felt, the opportunity to connect emotionally. I felt the opportunity to just like feel important. And I was connecting with this girl when I was in the 8th grade. I was about to go into high school. And that was the first time I ever really explored it on my own in secret. And so I knew that I liked girls. I didn't always know what it was called. I didn't know what it meant, but I just felt it deep inside of me. But for me, I dated someone for so long that I was unsure if that's really how I wanted to identify as gay. Before I came out, I wanted to figure out, is this me? Do I like guys as well? Do I not like girls and maybe that's what I thought was just available? I wasn't sure because all I had heard my entire life that it was wrong. So I doubted myself a lot. And after college and just getting out of a breakup and wanting to explore who I was on a deeper level, I decided to date guys. I decided to figure that out for myself because for me, I needed that closure. And I know it wasn't the same for Danny, and she'll dive into her story. But this is just what I felt. I felt like I needed that closure. I wanted to come out. I wanted to be who I was, but I wasn't sure if there was a part of me that would enjoy being with a guy. And so I tried that. And for me, I didn't like that. It just wasn't, I liked hanging out with them. I thought they were attractive, but I just didn't feel the emotional connection. And that was something that was super important to me that made me feel like the butterflies inside, right? Like the sparky feeling of getting with a girl or just what I had felt in the past. It didn't feel the same. And that kind of solidified my decision that I was gay. And after that, I came out. But that was a little bit about my story. I know that was a lot, but that it was a long, long process where I really just had to dive in, figure it out, and understand who I was, and try some things that maybe I didn't want to do, but I had to figure it out for my own needs. So, Danny, what about you? Let's talk about your story.
Yeah, so my story is actually pretty similar to yours in that we were both experimenting all along the way. I didn't try anything with a girl until I was in college. So it took me some time. If you had listened to our other podcast, I think it was about denying your LGBTQ plus identity. I struggled more in just accepting that I was gay, but I still experimented with guys throughout many years of my life. And I think it was really the point where I felt like it was very special, just like you did. And I didn't know why I was so attracted to learning more about LGBTQ plus relationships. I was so intrigued. And then I also struggled with a lot of internalized homophobia. And I had no idea where that was coming in from because my friends were like all just accepting. And I was like, no. And I was like, why was I feeling like that? And the real reason was I turned out to be gay and I was very jealous. And I've learned so much along the way about what my actions have really told me. But I don't know. It's been a really long journey of not just accepting it, even before I tried things, but my experimental phase for me was after I came out. So after I already knew who I was and I knew that like I liked girls, I didn't put a label on it until a little bit later. So I came out as bisexual first because that I had dated a few guys and I still liked them in my head. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's claim this label. Bye. And I was like, all right, whatever. And then as I moved into college, I decided to keep experimenting with guys and girls. And the more I started to experiment with girls, the more I realized that my attraction for guys was kind of fading away more and more over time. And even after I came out publicly, I still was experimenting with guys. And I'm thinking about it now. It's been a long time since I have, but the journey was more of, do I want to let go of the little bit of, putting in quotations, like heteronormative lifestyle that I could have lived? And the truth is, I feel like I kept trying to make it work with guys way more than I probably wanted to, just really to secure it, kind of like you did, to secure in my mind that I knew who I was. And I think the the interesting thing is, like, there was no defining moment for me where I really realized I was 100% gay because, and I talk about this a lot with a bunch of people, I feel like love is just love regardless of who it is. So I don't really like labels. I don't. And we're going to be talking about that probably more, but I just know that I'm attracted to girls, and that's what I know. And I've had to discover that over time by experimenting. But, you know, I feel like even, of course, I'm dating Keely, but if the right person came along who wasn't and didn't identify as another lesbian, I wouldn't deny it. Like, love is love, regardless of who it's with. Whatever happens, happens. So I don't know. I think self-discovery is all about giving yourself permission to figure it out along the way and really just figuring out what feels good. We don't have to claim a label if that's not what we're feeling. And I know my story didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I was just kind of going back and forth on experimenting, not whatever. But all that I've learned over the bunch of years of experimenting with who I'm attracted to, all I realized was that I just want to love who I love and not put any labels on that. Yeah. And that's what I know.
No, I really like that. And it's so true. I don't know if we can relate this to finding someone or dating, but I think a lot of times we think there's just one person that's out there for us, right? We think that we got to find the perfect person, the right person, but I believe that you can fall in love with a lot of different kinds of people, right? It just depends on, it's like their soul, who they are in their heart, who they are, how they think. It's not really about their gender, how they identify. It's not about that at all. It's more about just what feels best to you, you know? And I love that. I love thinking about that because to me, maybe I didn't have to call myself a lesbian. I don't know. I just decided to because it's easier and it makes sense and that's what feels best to me. It's all about different preferences and goes back to when we were first talking about comparing ourselves. There's so many people that feel like they have to be caught up with where people are. There's this imaginary timeline in your head. There's this person that you're supposed to be, and there's not. There really isn't. You just get to be you, and your journey's unique. Danny and I had similar stories, but they were also different. Mm-hmm. You know, I never had a boyfriend until I decided I wanted to try to figure it out. And you did, you know, and just whatever you're doing in your life right now, it doesn't matter. It's up to you, and you get to experiment with that, which is really beautiful and exciting and fun and new. So I love that.
But I think the most important thing to kind of take away, if you're struggling with understanding who you are, is to really just give yourself permission to be whoever you want to be and love whoever you want to love. I think coming out for all of us was more like, I don't want to fit into the heteronormative standards of just looking at it the way it usually is, you know, like coming out doesn't have to mean I identify as this one way and it's never going to change. It just means you may not identify with how your parents identify or how your friends identify. And I think it's beautiful to be you, however that looks for you. So you don't have to fit into a box. You don't have to be pressured to pick a label. These things change. And I remember I think it was, I don't remember exactly what year, but I remember there was one year when it was like coming out day and I was like, oh, and it was in like October 11th, I think is the day. I was like, I need to pick a label. I need to figure out who I am. I'm really sick of the going back and forth. Who do I like? Who do I not like? And I remember how frustrated I was. And until I just let go that it was okay to not have everything figured out and just to love who I want to love, it felt so good to let it all go because I just allowed myself to be whoever I wanted to be. So I think the most important thing to take out of it is just give yourself time and permission and an understanding to be whoever you are without feeling like you need to figure it all out right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. Beautifully said, Danny. You always say just the wisest things. Danny's like a quiet person in person, but she has so many wise words within her. I do have to say that, Danny, about you. Yeah, I was going to mention that and I don't know how long you've been listening, maybe you're new here, we do have a Coming Out Happy membership that we created about 8 months ago. And we've had some members that have, really grown within the past 8 months. And I've seen them come in where they weren't really sure who they were and, maybe just identified a certain way because that's what they felt was right in the moment. And now they've changed and they've accepted themselves. And it's because they took the time to really invest in themselves and grow and just love who they are. And you said letting go. Mm-hmm. When you let go, there's something that just releases inside of you that allows you to explore and be comfortable where you're at. Because I don't believe that anything doesn't happen for a reason. Everything does happen for a reason, and it's really, really incredible when you just start to think like that. When you go, you know what? If this didn't happen and if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be here. And all of these things led up, and when you look at it, picture a puzzle piece right now. When you see a big puzzle piece, if there's one piece missing, will the picture look the same? Nope. So I just think that's so amazing that every single piece makes sense in your life, and it's led you to exactly where you are. So there's no mistake in where you are. There's no mistake in you, and that's really beautiful. But yeah, definitely, learning and exploring more about yourself is a really amazing place to start if you're in the questioning phase. So I love that.
Something I also wanted to touch on, just because we were just talking a little bit about labels in that realm. Although Keely and I both identify as lesbians, I want to say that we don't try to ever push anyone into a box. And I kind of just said that about, don't feel pressured to be in a label. But if you feel like, it's right for you, then you can do that. Sometimes it's easier for other people to understand how to identify you if you put a label to it. But there's no right or wrong in any of this. And just with stereotypes, even if you identify a specific way, please don't feel like you need to fit into the box of how someone usually, like for an example, what are some lesbian stereotypes that you've heard?
Some lesbian stereotypes? Just that you dress a certain way, you act a certain way, and you see that a lot on TikTok, but if everyone was the same, it'd be so boring. I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't want that. It's like you go to your favorite ice cream shop and all they have is chocolate or all they have is vanilla. And you're just like, I want all the flavors. What about the chocolate chip cookie dough? What about the mint chip?
Yeah, and I think it's just important to understand that even if you identify a certain way, even if you say who you are, you do not need to act or dress or look a certain way to be like that. But the overall message is there are so many stereotypes that, you can look at on TikTok or on Instagram. We can spend so much time thinking that we should be or look or do something that's similar to someone else. But the truth is there is so much beauty in just being yourself and not feeling like you need to fit into anything else besides something that you want to do. So that was really what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and if you liked this podcast, definitely send us a message on Instagram telling us what podcast episode you listened to. I believe this one will be episode 23, 24, whatever it is. And let us know what you thought. We want to hear from you. We want to connect with you and just see where you're at. Where are you in this? What did you get from this? What is your biggest takeaway? We love learning from you guys. We love hearing what you want to know more about. We base all of these podcasts around the listeners. So whatever you want to hear, we'll dive into, we'll talk about, we'll share more about, and just hopes that it can help you in any way possible. Also, if you're looking for more support, stay tuned because we have a lot of great stuff coming up that Danny and I have been working on. We're opening the membership back up again very, very soon. So definitely send us a message if you're interested in that at Coming Out Happy on Instagram. And if you aren't following along on TikTok at Coming Out Happy Team, you should definitely do that as well. We're posting every single day, so you can find lots of resources. Continue to listen to the podcast and know that we're always here for you. Thank you guys so much for listening to us today. We love you all, and we can't wait for more to come. Have a great day, everyone.